snow had fallen for 5 days straight in Aspen, blanketing the mountains and forests in a silence so thick it almost hurt to breathe. The road leading to the Thorne estate was barely visible beneath the white, and the wind howled like a warning. No one came up here during storms like this. No one except her. Lena Grace stood at the front gate of the estate, her fingers numb inside the thin gloves she had borrowed from the shelter. Her boots were soaked through her breath, trembled in the air. She had walked the final 3 miles uphill after the local bus could go no further. All for a job she was not even sure existed. The gate creaked open after a long minute. A man emerged through the thick snow. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black wool coat that seemed too perfect for this brutal weather. His face was chiseled, jaw-sharp eyes, ice gray and colder than the snow beneath her feet. There was no warmth in his expression, no curiosity, just judgment. "You are lost," he said, voice deep and clipped. Lena clutched the folder to her chest. "I'm here for the housekeeper position. Mrs. Janice said I don't need a maid." He cut her off. She hesitated. "Please, just an interview." "I walked here. I came from Glenwood." He looked past her as if debating whether to shut the gate in her face. "You walked through that blizzard. I couldn't afford a cab." His jaw clenched. "How old are you, 21? His eyes narrowed. "And let me guess, no experience, no references. You look like you walked out of a fairy tale and landed at the wrong castle." She held his gaze. "I know how to clean. I can cook a little. I don't steal. I don't lie." He studied her for a moment too long. "And you are innocent, I assume?" The question caught her off guard. What does that matter? It matters to people like me, people with reputations, vulnerabilities. She exhaled slowly, the cold burning her lungs. "I'm not here to ruin you. I just want to survive." For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Maybe recognition, maybe pity. Then it vanished. "I don't hire live-in staff anymore. Especially not ones who look like they still believe in magic." "I don't believe in magic," she said softly, "but I believe in work. And I'm not leaving until you give me a chance." A long silence passed, then he stepped aside and gestured toward the path. "1 week, that's all you get." She nodded, blinking the snowflakes from her lashes. "What's your name, Lena?" "Lena Grace." He didn't offer his in return. He just turned, walking back toward the stone mansion half buried in snow. She followed, her legs shaking, unsure if it was the cold or the way his presence seemed to press against her chest like weight. As the doors closed behind her, the warmth of the mansion wrapped around her like fire. But his voice still echoed in her ears. "I don't need a maid." He was wrong. And something deep inside her whispered he would realize that soon enough. The Thorne estate was nothing like Lena had imagined. It was not modern or sleek like the pictures of billionaire homes she had seen online. It was old, stone walls, heavy oak doors, fireplaces that crackled with real wood. A place that whispered history and isolation. The kind of house that had witnessed secrets and never told a soul. She followed him silently through the grand hall, her boots squeaking against the polished wooden floors. The warmth inside was overwhelming compared to the biting cold outside, and her cheeks tingled from the sudden change. He walked ahead without looking back, his strides long and decisive, his presence like gravity. "You'll stay in the East Wing," he said finally, turning to face her. "It's far from the main rooms. I like my privacy." She nodded. "I won't bother you." Janice left instructions, he continued. You're to clean the first floor. The study and bedroom are off limits. Meals are served at 7. Breakfast and dinner. Lunch I handle myself. Lena tried to memorize, everything afraid to speak and break the rhythm of his rules. Kitchen is yours after hours, but no noise after 9. Understood. If you get sick, I won't take care of you. She blinked. Okay. He studied her again, as if expecting her to flinch or cry or run. But she didn't. She simply stood there, thin shoulders, straight eyes alert. He turned away. Don't expect me to remember your name. I don't do well with attachments. Noted, she whispered. But she had already memorized his. Alexander Thorne, the Ice King of Aspen. That was what people called him in the newspapers. A man who had disappeared from the public eye after building one of the most successful investment empires in the country. Brilliant, untouchable, heartless. Rumors said his fiancée had left him days before the wedding selling private company data to a competitor. Since then, he had withdrawn from the world, retreating to his mountain fortress like a myth. And now Lena Grace, a girl with no degree, no family, and no plan, had walked straight into his world. Her room in the East Wing was small but warm. The bed was soft, the windows overlooked the forest, and there was a faint scent of pine in the sheets. She sat on the edge of the mattress, clutching her bag tightly. Inside it was everything she owned. 3 shirts, a worn paperback novel, and a letter from the orphanage director. You are capable of light, Lena, even in the coldest places. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper, a sense that this place, this job, this man, none of it was an accident. The next morning she rose early, before dawn. She scrubbed the kitchen, dusted the grand piano in the music room, and organized the library without being asked. She didn't see him until breakfast. He stood at the head of the dining table, reading a newspaper, a cup of black coffee, untouched in front of him. His shirt was crisp sleeves rolled to his forearms, revealing a silver watch and a scar that ran along the side of his wrist. He did not acknowledge her when she entered. She poured coffee, silently set the plate down, and stepped back. He glanced up. Their eyes met, just for a second. A flicker. Then he returned to reading. Eggs are overcooked, he murmured. I'll do better tomorrow, she replied. He did not comment further, but he finished every bite. Over the next few days, Lena learned the rhythms of the house. Alexander rose at 6. He spent hours in the study, speaking rarely, always precise in tone. He left notes for her when something was needed. She never asked questions. She moved quietly, respectfully, but she watched. She noticed the way he stood by the window when it snowed. The way his hand paused on the edge of the piano, though he never played. The way his shoulders tensed when the phone rang. He was a man of silence, but his silence was loud, and Lena, without meaning to, began listening to it. One evening, as she placed a tray by the fire, she heard him speak without warning. You don't belong here. She looked at him, unsure if it was a warning or an observation. Maybe not, she said, but neither do you. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. She walked away, heart pounding. She should have stayed quiet. She should have feared him. But something inside her refused, because for the first time in her life, she felt like the cold around her was not trying to kill her. It was trying to test her. Lena began to understand the rhythm of the house like it was a living thing. The way the floors creaked in the east hallway when the wind blew. The way the chandelier in the foyer flickered slightly when the fireplace was lit. She noticed how Alexander always took his coffee black, always left his shoes precisely aligned at the front mat, and how he never once addressed her by name. And yet she also noticed how he began to appear more often in places where he hadn't been before. At the piano, pretending to read documents while she dusted nearby. In the kitchen, lingering too long after pouring a glass of water. In the study doorway, watching her through the reflection in the window. It was subtle, unspoken, but it was there. Something growing. One afternoon, as she scrubbed the marble counters in the kitchen, he stepped inside without a word. She didn't hear him until he was only a few feet away. Her breath caught not from fear, but from the sudden intensity of being alone with him, in a space so quiet it magnified every sound. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Why are you still here?" She blinked, confused. "You told me I had a week. That was 5 days ago. Then I have 2 left." He tilted his head. Most people would have quit after the first night. "You didn't even flinch when I told you not to speak unless spoken to." "You're speaking now," she replied softly. He stared at her. That look again, cold and unreadable, but with something behind it, like a glacier concealing fire. "You're not like the others," he murmured. "What others?" "The ones who fake kindness to get closer. The ones who want something." She held his gaze. "Maybe I do want something." He stepped closer. "And what would that be?" She swallowed. "A chance. Not your money, not your name. Just space to exist without being pushed out." He said nothing for a long moment, then turned and walked out of the kitchen. But the next morning he left a note on the counter. Breakfast was good. The eggs were perfect. "Thank you." For the first time, her hands trembled when she picked up the plate. Over the next week, everything changed in ways neither of them could name. The silence between them grew heavier, charged with something unspoken. When she passed him in the hallway, their shoulders almost brushed. When she handed him a glass of water, his fingers lingered a second too long on hers. When she laughed at something on the radio, he looked up from his book with a startled expression, like the sound had fractured something inside him. One night she couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, and the power flickered twice before going out. The house fell into complete darkness. She padded down the hallway with a flashlight, heart pounding, unsure what she was looking for, until she found herself outside his study. The door was open. He was inside, standing near the fire, a single candle casting golden light across his face. "The generator should come back soon," he said without turning. She stepped in. "I'm not afraid of the dark. You should be." She paused, watching the way the shadows danced along his jawline. "You're always afraid of things that don't touch you." He turned, then eyes sharp. "And you're not. I've already been touched by worse than darkness," she said. He stared at her, then walked toward her slowly. Lena. It was the first time he said her name. Her breath caught. It sounded dangerous on his tongue. Beautiful, forbidden. "Yes," she whispered. "Go back to bed." But his voice wavered, just a little. She should have turned, should have obeyed, but she didn't move. He stopped inches from her. She could feel the heat radiating from his body. His eyes dropped to her lips. "Do you know what you're doing?" he asked. Standing still, she whispered. "Not running. Everyone runs eventually. I won't." He raised a hand, brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. The touch was electric. Her knees trembled. Then he backed away suddenly, like the moment had burned him. "Good night, Lena." She stood there a full minute, after he left, trying to steady her breathing. The next morning he was gone. Not a word, not a note. She felt the absence in her chest like a bruise. The day passed in slow silence. That night, as she cleaned the table, he returned, entered the kitchen like he hadn't been gone. She didn't turn. "Did you go into town?" "No." Then where? He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Are you angry? Should I be? I don't know." She finally turned. "You confuse me. You unsettle me," he replied. "Why?" "Because I don't want anything anymore. I spent years building walls, and you keep finding cracks in them." She stepped forward, heart pounding. "Then stop watching. Stop waiting. Say what you mean or let me go." He closed the distance between them in one breath. His hand cupped her cheek. She didn't flinch. "You scare me," he said. "I don't know how to want gently." "Then don't be gentle," she said. "But be real." He didn't kiss her, not yet. But the moment hung between them like a match suspended in air, seconds from striking. A storm louder than snow had begun, and neither of them could unhear its approach. Lena awoke the next morning with the distinct sense that something had changed. The air in the house felt different, heavier, like a piano string pulled too tight. She moved through her morning routine in silence, dusting the library shelves, organizing the kitchen, and trying not to think about the way Alexander had looked at her the night before. The way his voice had softened, cracked open like a secret, but he was nowhere to be seen. She didn't see him during breakfast or lunch. By evening, a cold worry settled in her stomach. She climbed the stairs, hesitating outside the door of his study. She knocked once, no response. She pushed the door open, empty. But his laptop was open on the desk, and a leather folder sat nearby. She didn't mean to look. But a slip of paper fell from the folder, and she caught a glimpse of a woman's face clipped to a page. Headlines beneath it: "Scandal, Betrayal. Alexandra Pierce sells Thorn Holdings data to rival firm." Lena's fingers trembled as she placed it back where it belonged. So it was true. The rumors. His past wasn't just tragic, it was humiliating, public. She closed the door softly and returned to the kitchen, heart heavy. That night he came home after 10, covered in snow. She didn't ask where he had gone, but he looked at her for a long time before speaking. "You read the file." It wasn't a question. She nodded slowly. "Only what fell out." He dropped his coat onto the chair. "That woman almost destroyed me, not because of the money, but because I believed her, because I thought she saw me, and I don't forgive myself for being wrong." "You were human," Lena said. "No one's immune to love." He stepped closer. "I don't love. I didn't say you did. But I'm starting to feel something I can't explain, and that's more dangerous." She swallowed. "Then let me explain it for you." He waited. "You're not afraid of me," he said. "I'm afraid of losing what I never had." Her voice cracked. "Because when you look at me, I feel seen, not pitied, not judged, just alive." His jaw clenched. "You're too good. I'm just real," she whispered. "And I'm still here." That night they didn't touch, but he sat across from her at the fire, and for the first time he talked. About his mother who died when he was 19, about the pressure to perform, the world of wealth and power where no one said what they meant. She listened, eyes never leaving his. Somewhere in that conversation, something shifted. The next day the doorbell rang. Unusual, unexpected. Lena opened it and was met by a woman with dark red lipstick and high heels completely inappropriate for snow. She stepped inside without invitation. "I'm looking for Alex," she said. Lena stared. "He's not available." Tell him Alexandra's here." Lena's breath caught. This was her, the woman in the photo, Alexandra Pierce, the one who broke him. Alexander arrived a moment later, face like stone. "You shouldn't be here. You won't return my calls," she said smoothly. "So I came." Lena stepped back, unsure whether to leave. But Alexandra's eyes locked onto hers. "This her, your new little pet." Alexander's voice dropped a level. "Leave her out of this. You're repeating patterns," Alexandra said, crossing her arms. "First me, now the Virgin Maid. What is it with you and damaged girls?" "You need to go," Alexander said. "Now." But Lena had heard enough. She turned and walked out of the room, back into the cold. She didn't stop until she reached the tree line near the edge of the property. Her chest hurt. Her throat burned. She hadn't even realized she'd started crying. She didn't know what they had, but it suddenly felt fragile, conditional, like she was nothing more than another version of a past mistake. She sat on a log trying to breathe. Minutes passed, then footsteps. Alexander appeared, breath visible, in the air, coat half zipped. "She was lying," he said. "About what? About you. About all of it." "Doesn't matter," Lena said. "I shouldn't have been here in the first place." "Don't say that. You hired me out of pity." "No, I hired you out of curiosity, but I kept you out of need." She looked at him, eyes red. "Do you think I'm broken?" "No," he said. "I think you're the only real thing I've touched in years." She stood slowly. "I can't compete with your past. You don't have to." "Then why did you flinch when she said Virgin Maid, like it was a curse?" "Because she made it sound like you were less. And I know you're more." The silence between them deepened. He stepped forward slowly, reaching for her hand. She let him. "You scare me," he said again, "because you make me hope." "Then stop hoping," she whispered. "Start believing." He pulled her into his arms, not to kiss, not yet, but to hold. For the first time, she let herself lean into him. Feel the way his heart beat just a little faster when she touched his chest. The past wasn't gone, but it no longer stood between them. Truth had arrived, and neither of them turned away. The days that followed moved differently. There was still snow outside, still silence in the halls, but something in the atmosphere of the Thorne estate had shifted. Lena no longer tiptoed through her duties. Alexander no longer avoided her presence. They fell into a rhythm that was almost domestic, almost dangerous. He started having breakfast in the kitchen instead of the dining room. She would already be there, hair tied back, sleeves rolled, humming softly under her breath. He never mentioned the humming, but he always arrived just in time to hear it. One morning he walked in to find her standing on her tiptoes, reaching for a jar on the highest shelf. He stepped behind her without a word, one arm sliding around her waist, the other grabbing the jar with ease. She froze. So did he. Neither moved. The jar remained in his hand, suspended between them, like a fragile truth. "You should keep a stool nearby," he murmured. "Or maybe you should stop putting everything so damn high." She replied, voice low. He set the jar down slowly, but his hand didn't leave her waist. His fingers brushed the hem of her sweater. She turned, eyes wide, breath shallow. "Alexander," she whispered. He looked down at her lips, then into her eyes. "Say stop," he said. "If you don't want this, say it now." She didn't speak, didn't flinch, just reached up and touched his jaw, fingers trembling. That was all he needed. His mouth found hers in a kiss that wasn't soft or slow. It was urgent, full of heat and restraint, pushed past its limit. She responded with equal intensity, her hands in his hair, his arms around her, pulling her against his chest. The kiss deepened. Her back hit the counter. His hands were on her waist, then under her sweater, exploring skin with reverence and hunger. "Tell me, this isn't madness," he murmured against her lips. "It is," she said, gasping. "But it's ours." He lifted her effortlessly onto the counter, his lips never leaving hers. She wrapped her legs around him instinctively, heart pounding. "You're sure?" he whispered. "Yes," she said. "I've never been more sure of anything." What followed wasn't chaos, it was surrender. They moved like people who had waited too long, denied too much, needed too deeply. Every touch was new and yet familiar, like something remembered from a dream. When it was over, they didn't speak. She lay against his chest, still trembling, still dazed. His fingers moved through her hair, slowly, methodically. "I never meant for this to happen," he said. "Neither did I," she replied. "But I'm glad it did. I don't want to break you. You didn't. I might. Then break me gently." He kissed her forehead. "No, I'll build you back stronger." That night she didn't return to the East Wing. She stayed in his room, in his bed, beneath the thick blankets and the scent of pine and skin. And in the dark, he whispered things he had never said aloud. "I've been numb for years," he said. "I stopped feeling anything. Until you." "I used to believe I was invisible," she said. "Until you saw me." The next morning, sunlight poured into the room. Lena woke to the sound of her phone buzzing, a number she didn't recognize. She answered. A woman's voice spoke quickly, anxiously. "Lena Grace. This is Mrs. Calloway, director of Glenwood Orphanage. I know it's early, but someone from the press has been calling asking questions about you. About your time at the shelter, something about a billionaire employer. Do you know anything about this?" Lena's blood ran cold. "No," she said. I don't." She ended the call and turned to Alexander, who was now sitting up staring at her. "It's starting," he said. "They're digging." "But how, Alexandra?" he said bitterly. She must have planted something. That day it hit the tabloids, anonymous sources, speculation, headlines. Billionaire recluse seduces orphaned maid. Allegations of manipulation. Online sleuths digging up her past. Lena watched the news in horror. Alexander's team tried to pull the articles down, but it was too late. The damage was done. Reporters camped near the estate. Drones buzzed overhead. Lena stopped leaving the house. He tried to shield her, to protect her, but he couldn't protect her from herself. "Maybe I should leave," she said one night, standing by the fireplace. "If I go, this dies down. If you leave, I fall apart," he said. "You were fine before me." "No," he said. "I was frozen. Now I burn, and I'd rather burn with you than freeze alone again." "This is hurting you." "No," he said. "It's hurting us," which is worse. She turned away, tears brimming. "I don't want to be your weakness." He walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're not my weakness," he whispered. "You're my heart." She broke then, sobbing quietly in his arms. But he didn't flinch. He held her through it, through the storm, through the fear. They made love again that night, not with urgency, but with something deeper, a kind of desperation, as if trying to memorize each other before something was torn away. And in the darkness he said it. "I love you, Lena." She froze. "Say it again. I love you." "I've never heard those words," she whispered. "Not like this. Now you have." She pressed her face into his chest, letting the words settle. "Then I'll stay, no matter what happens." He kissed her hair. "Good. Because I'll never let you go." The peace that followed their confession was delicate, like a glass teetering on the edge of a high shelf. For a few days they lived in a fragile bubble of warmth and touch, waking together, moving through the house, like it belonged to both of them, even though neither dared say it aloud. But the world outside was still spinning, still watching, and it didn't care about their tenderness. The headlines kept coming. The photos became more invasive. One morning a drone hovered close enough to the kitchen window that Lena dropped a glass in surprise. Alexander stormed outside, took a baseball bat to the machine, and cursed loud enough for the staff hiding in the back rooms to hear. But rage couldn't fix it, not this time. His legal team sent out statements. He threatened lawsuits. But what made it worse was that no one from the media cared about facts. They cared about spectacle. The billionaire who seduced the maid, the orphan girl who bewitched a king, the ice and fire and the scandal in the snow. Lena tried to ignore it, to stay small and quiet in the house, but the weight of it grew too heavy. One night she couldn't sleep. She wandered into the library, finding Alexander in his reading chair, staring at the fire without a book in hand. He looked up when she entered, his face shadowed by something heavy. "We need to talk," he said. She sat down across from him, heart already beating too fast. "They're contacting the board of my company," he said, "trying to paint you as leverage. If they find something they can twist, I could lose control of Thorn Capital." "What are you saying?" she asked. "I'm saying they want you gone. They want to use you to destroy everything I built. So push back." "I have." "Then what, Lena?" he said, and the way he said her name broke something inside her. "I'm asking if you're willing to disappear, just until this passes." She froze. "Disappear temporarily. Just leave Aspen. Let me handle this. Once it dies down, I'll come find you. You want me to hide, I want to protect you." "No," she said, voice cracking. "You want to protect your company. That's not fair, isn't it?" "This world is cruel," he said. "It chews people up and spits them out. I'm not going to let them do that to you. But you're letting them win." He stood abruptly, pacing. "You think I want this? You think it doesn't kill me to even suggest it? Then don't. You don't understand what's at stake, and you don't understand what it feels like to finally matter to someone and be told to vanish." Silence fell, long, heavy, final. Lena stood, tears stinging her eyes. "I thought you saw me," she said. "I do." "No," she whispered. "You saw a problem, and now you're trying to erase it." She turned and walked out. He didn't follow. The next morning she packed a single bag. She left a note on the nightstand, not to guilt him, but to let him go. She took the bus to Glenwood, back to the orphanage. The director took one look at her face and didn't ask questions. Days passed, then a week. She helped with the children, scrubbed floors, told herself she was okay, but every night when she closed her eyes she saw his. Not cold, not guarded, just broken. One afternoon she turned on the TV in the break room. There he was, a press conference, suit perfect, hair immaculate, voice calm. "I want to make one thing clear," he said. "Lena Grace did not manipulate me. She didn't seduce me. She didn't take anything from me. I gave it freely. My time, my heart, my name if she'll have it." Reporters gasped. Questions were shouted. He raised a hand. "This company was built on my vision. But I lost sight of what mattered. I let fear drive me, and I lost the woman who taught me how to feel again." Lena dropped the remote. She stared at the screen, hand over her mouth. Her knees buckled. That night, a black car pulled up outside the orphanage. He stepped out, coat flaring in the wind. She met him on the steps. They stared at each other, not speaking. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a simple gold ring. No box, no speech, just his hand shaking. "Marry me," he said. "Not for the press, not to fix anything. Just because I love you." She stared at him, heart breaking open. "You sent me away, and I came back," he whispered. "Because I realized this empire means nothing without you in it. You don't owe me anything, I know, but I owe myself the truth. And the truth is, I can't do this life without you." She took the ring, slipped it on, no hesitation, no fear. "Then don't," she said. He pulled her into his arms, held her like she was breath itself. And in that moment, there was no scandal, no cameras, just two souls who had burned and frozen, and now finally found home. The wedding was not grand. There were no flashing cameras, no towering cakes, or long guest lists. Just a quiet ceremony beneath a canopy of snow-covered pines behind the Thorne estate. The orphanage children stood in place of bridesmaids and groomsmen, their faces lit with wonder. The wind whispered through the trees like a blessing. Lena wore a simple white dress. She had sewn herself, the fabric soft and unpretentious. Alexander wore a black suit with no tie, his hand never leaving hers. When the officiant asked for vows, he didn't hesitate. "You walked into my life during the coldest season, and somehow you made me feel again. I told you I didn't need a maid. The truth is, I didn't need anyone. Until you. Now I know I don't want to face a single day without your voice, your strength, your light." Lena's voice trembled, but her eyes never wavered. "You scared me, not because of who you were, but because of how deeply I felt drawn to you. I thought I was too invisible to be loved. You proved me wrong. I thought you were too far gone to feel. I proved you wrong. That's what we do. We save each other." They kissed not as billionaire and maid, not as survivor and recluse, but as two people who had clawed their way out of loneliness and chosen love. Afterward, they danced barefoot in the snow, laughter rising like steam in the cold. No music, just heartbeat and memory, and the crunch of fresh snow beneath their feet. Inside the estate, the fireplaces burned warmer than ever. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread and sweet tea. The piano was no longer just decoration. He played a few notes every morning just to hear her laugh, and she laughed more often now, boldly, loudly, like someone who had finally found a reason to take up space in the world. He no longer called her just Lena. He called her his fire, his warmth, his home. And she no longer called him the Ice King. He was simply Alexander, the man who once lived among stone walls and silent halls, now softening each day beneath the presence of the girl who taught him how to feel again. The scandal faded, the reporters moved on, but they remained, together, building something not out of luxury or fear, but out of truth, out of the hard, beautiful work of loving and being loved in return. Because sometimes the most powerful kind of love isn't the one that shouts the loudest. It's the one that survives the silence. And in the end, it was never about needing a maid. It was about needing a mirror, someone who reflected who you were and who you could become. Together, always together.